we go into, and if you depending on how I'm able to address your queries. But the idea is I generally want this session to be as detailed as possible, because this would then be very helpful for you at a later stage when you need to revisit anything in terms of things that we've discussed. And I would want to make sure that you are aware of everything at any given stage before starting the course with us, in terms of and there are no surprises, or there are no such areas which are gray areas or gap areas.
Okay.
Right. So what I will do is switch you over to the website, and let's start from there by quickly showing you some of the systems, and then we'll follow the order in terms of going through the discussion on this particular course.
Okay.
Now, first and foremost, the most important thing that I would expect you to do is to bookmark our website for the duration, at least, of the course that you're going to study with us.
Yeah.
The reason I say this, the website, is because this becomes a starting point from where you'd be able to get to everything that you need to, with regards to studying the course with us. The reason I say this is, if you need to, reach us on WhatsApp, there's a number given on the top here. This number, you would normally get a response within maybe a couple of minutes straight away. You can send an email to us at admissions, which is a 24 hours monitored mailbox. So anything that you send, again, you would get maybe a reply within a couple of minutes, or maximum of 1 or 2 hours. You need to reach our learner management system. There's a shortcut to it. So if I click this particular system, this brings and opens up the website through which you'll be able to get access to all the teaching and learning material that you would need to essentially, study in the course. Then at some stage, you could also maybe go across onto our YouTube channel. This particular channel, we have lots of material which is available. There are over 3,000 videos in the public domain. And then there are lots of videos that are subscribed videos. So anything that we normally teach, deliver, is available as a bit of a repository here, and it's available easily because you have links to it, and you'd be able to pretty much go into the channel, do a search under the playlist, or search from here, and that should allow you to find a particular video that you want to look at for the purposes of revisiting a particular session. And last but not the least, Zoom, essentially, although you do not require any subscriptions, but what will generally happen is, when we do conduct live sessions for any of the units that you're going to study in the course, you'll receive an invite, and that invite would essentially mean that at any given stage, you have a link that you click on, and that would allow you to get onto the meeting pretty much, or join the meeting or the session with the tutor pretty much straight away. So these 4 systems are easily accessible, from the website. So whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's looking at the phone, and obviously, if you go down to the footer of the website, you have the address and, the other details in terms of contact numbers. Monday to Friday, obviously, we are available between 10 to 5:30. And on the weekends, it's predominantly WhatsApp. But you would generally be able to reach to somebody in terms of any sort of requirement that you might have. And then bookmarking this is going to be quite easy. All you have to do is click on the lock, just press on the lock, keep it pressed, and bring it to your bookmark bar. Similarly, if I have to do this for Moodle, just keep it pressed, your left button on the mouse, and then bring it to your bookmark bar. So what happens is, essentially, at a click of a button, you would be able to access some of the systems that you would need, from time to time to be able to access. So they would be ready reckoners. And as you go along and study the course with us, what will happen is, over a point in time, you would have a folder, and that folder was essentially be, something that you will have links of within, your system. And that would mean these are the best sites, or some of the additional sites that you could refer to for the purposes of, looking at resources primarily within the aspect of, studying the course itself, because you'll build some resources as you go along of your own. And as you're a teacher yourself and you're in the teaching field, I think it always helps to build a repository of resources by looking at websites, bookmarking articles, which you could use to successfully teach and deliver, things that you're in your subject area at any given point in time.
Yeah.
Now, the other quick bit which I want to do is basically give you an overview of Moodle. Now, I'm pretty sure that you've received a few emails from us which
Yes, I do.
allowed you to set up the system. So you are logged in right now. And do you have access to the course?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, if at any given stage you feel that you've forgotten the password on the system or your username, then the simple way to reset and get an instant link back to your email is by clicking on this option of forget username and password. So when you click on this, it'll ask you either you put your username or you put your email address, and you click search and then click continue. That would straight away send a link to your email address to say, please click on this, and then it'll allow you to set a new password. Now, if you want to set up this system on your phone or on your tablet, then there is a free app that you can do that. And that would be a small setup that you need to follow in 4 steps. It will be allowing you to set this up. So wherever you have access to the internet, you'd be able to take the course material along with you and have access to it. So there's an app called Moodle. If you use, what phone do you use? Do you use Android or Apple phone?
Android.
All right. So in your Android, in the Google Play Store, there should be an app which is called Moodle. It's a free app that you can download. This app, when downloaded, would ask you 3 things to be able to set it up on your phone. And that would require you to provide what is called the URL of the Moodle, or web address, as essentially I would say. The web address would be lms.ukversity.co.uk. And then your username and your password. And because you're setting it up on your phone, you can save this username and password, and that would mean you would not need to enter these details again on the app. The only advantage that I see here, for us is that because if you have it on your phone, then what we can do is push notifications, because on the phone, as you know, smartphones nowadays, you can push notifications like alerts, reminders, share a calendar. So those bits are important bits that we'll be able to use it for, and communicate with you subtly by this route of pushing notifications to you if you have this installed at your end. And that is the bit that you can control here at your end by clicking on the 3 dots. And if you want to switch off notifications, that can be done. But generally, I feel learners find it useful to have this app, although it's a small screen. But if you need to refer to anything urgently, or you need to look at something onto the course, and you have maybe just the phone available at your hand at that point in time, then it at least allows you to access the course material without any dilution. So you'll be able to get access to presentations, handout books, any sort of assignment briefs. Everything would be available to you from within the app.
Okay.
Now, this is optional install, but should you wish to do so, you can do that at any given point in time. And there's a demo of this which has been given by showing an actual install running on the iPhone, but it works seamlessly well on the Android app as well. If you are unable to reset your password because of some reasons, there's a detailed video. Sometimes you need to look at this because there are ways in which you can reset this, because sometimes it's the cookies on your system which need to be cleared. Sometimes we save a number of passwords, and that does maybe an interference with when you log in. But last but not the least, sometimes, on public machines, like in the college we have, so learners, sometimes they come in and they reset their username and password. What will generally happen is that you'll have a lot of passwords which are normally there, and that would mean sometimes the system is not liking that it has so many passwords which are saved. So if I look at this right now, as you can see, there are so many different passwords which are saved by different learners who have used this machine. So the system is tuned in such a way that it does not allow more than 3 attempts at any given point in time to log in. This is to also prevent any sort of hacking or bringing down the site by brute force. So when you try and log in, and if you are unable to log in for more than 3 times, if that has been unsuccessful, then in most cases, what I normally recommend the learners to do is use the option of forget username and password and go ahead and change it, rather than getting yourself locked out of the system for a period of half an hour. So that could be sometimes frustrating. But this demo here, to how to comprehensively sometimes reset your password by clearing cookies, by looking at asking for a password reset link, which is automatically sent by the system, And last but not the least, ensuring that you don't have multiple usernames and passwords accessing a particular site or in the browser. And that is just as an option given. I don't think most users use it or need it, because their machines and their phones or their system in which they access it is personal to themselves. So these kind of circumstances are absolutely minimized. Now, quickly logging into the system, you put your username here, you put your password here, and then you click on the green button and you should be able to log in. I'm pretty sure you're a teacher yourself. So are you using Moodle in your organization?
No, we are not.
All right. Okay. What system do you use?
No, we have the school system, and I teach in the premises.
All right. Okay. So you do classroom-based teaching, and sometimes some schools have Pro Monitor, Blackboard. There are lots of different systems available now, but generally the system that we are using is called Moodle.
Okay.
And it's a simple enough system to use, and that's what I'm going to show you quite quickly. So as you can see, I'm logged in right now. How do you find your course? Now, when you are logged into your system, you're going to see a few tiles. So in your case, it will show you your My Courses because you've logged into your dashboard, and that should show you the OTHM Level 6 Diploma in Teaching. Now, if you're not able to sometimes see the course, or if it appears differently on your side, I can try and look at a student view as well. But in most cases, you should be able to search your course by clicking onto education, because your course is in the education sector. And then what we've done is we put the course here, which is OTHM Level 6 Diploma in Teaching and Learning. So when you click on this course, you would essentially get into the course that you are going to be studying with us. And this course is organized in terms of a table of contents. So what will happen here is the induction that I'm doing right now will actually get reflected here in terms of a recording link. So if you ever need to go back to your induction, that will be showing up as a recording link on this side. Today, our focus would be to look at covering some bits of the content that I would want to show you and discuss, and that would be in the pre-enrollment section of this course, which is this area. Okay. This area primarily is the area wherein you would normally have material that you refer once from an overall perspective, and at some stage after this has been read through and you've understood most of the bits, what you then do is primarily get into the individual units of the course, and they would be laid out one after the other in no particular chronological order. So as you can see, this is the first unit, and the first unit normally is, or any unit that you have started to study would have a yellow outline border, and that would essentially mean that's the current unit that you're studying. Once you complete this unit will become faded, and the next unit will essentially have the border. And similarly, it will follow through as a process in your case till you complete all the 6 units that you're required to study. Okay. Now, how is the layout of the units done, and what is the content and the layout in the units itself? Now, when you look at the content and the layout of the units, what you will generally see as the documents, there will be more or less PDF documents, and sometimes we'll also have Microsoft PowerPoint documents and Microsoft Word documents. Now, there are lots of templates. As you know, this is a teaching qualification. So here we are teaching you the tools and techniques to be able to effectively teach well using this qualification and the skills that you gain within this qualification. So what we are going to do is, as you go along into the course, sometimes people who have not got any practical experience in terms of working or teaching within the sector, then they need help of templates or, reference templates, as I would put it this way, which they can download, and we provide them as Word documents that you would be able to download and then customize or contextualize to your requirements, and then use those templates as outputs to include in your assignment as evidence. So things like lesson plans, schemes of work, individual learning plan, CPD or career professional development plan. You look at, professional development plan or training and development assessments that you do, assessment summative summary that you do, or assessment planning that you do. These are going to be the templates that we will provide depending on the unit that you are studying. And some of these would be useful because you will populate them and then use them as evidence and submit it along with the assignments for the purposes of certification. Now, how is the content organized? Very briefly, the last aspect that I want to show you on Moodle. First document in all the units that you would see would be called unit specification. Now, this is something that we've extracted from the course handbook of OTHM, and individual parts of it in terms of units have been categorized into individual units. Now, the reason we have done this is because this is something that we use to create presentations. We will use this to, look at teaching and learning, and we will ensure that this material, the unit material that you're going to study for that particular unit is going to be modeled and based on what the awarding body is actually asking you to study. So this will always be a PDF document, which is version controlled by the awarding body, and it's called the unit specification. After that, you are going to see assignment brief. So at some stage, when you complete this unit, you will follow the assessment grid, and what the awarding body does, in this case, our OTHM, is going to provide you an assignment. And this is the assignment that you will need to attempt to be able to complete successfully and achieve this particular unit. So second document generally is going to be always the assignment brief. Now, after that, what we're going to do is, in the unit specification, there are a number of books which they recommend for you to study. Now, over the years that we have taught this course, we have shortlisted a certain number of books that we feel which are important for you to relate to the indicative content which is given here. Sometimes awarding bodies, they will put 20 books in it, but those books would mean, they've just included every book in. But what we want to be able to do is use the books which have this indicative content, which the awarding body is covered, and make them available to you from within the system when you're studying with us, so that you don't need to go to anywhere in Google or search for the books or, borrow the books, and they would be available for you to study from here. They are all integrated after, the unit specification and the assignment brief. And these are typically academic books. Sometimes they will be an extract in some cases, because they are generally quite detailed. And what we would personally ask you to do is primarily look at, reading some part of the chapters, essentially to ensure that you have good understanding of the content and the related aspect which is prescribed by the awarding organization. So teaching in lifelong, one second. I want to upload one particular book which is not being done, lifelong sector. The reason I say this is because this is one book which I have studied, which covers everything in your qualification that you would need to do so at your end. And this is quite an important book, simply because for those of us who have done some sort of, teaching qualification, I would say, in the past couple of years, or in the past, like petals, DiTLs, or, something which was award in education and training now, these books are, something which I would suggest that you should be looking at. So this particular book that I'm going to show you, which is the content here, and I'm going to replace it now as we go along and talk, is something which I would suggest you to read as a minimum. It's a 600-page book. There are, I think, 26 chapters in that book. But if you read this book, when I did my PGCE in higher education, that's the only book that I have read in teaching, to be honest. And it is the Bible of every teaching course. And I would suggest that this is a book which every teacher should at least read, from a purposes of, getting to grips with understanding assessment, lesson planning, IQA process, giving feedback, reflective journals, and, in terms of how to do management of lessons, classes, looking at, delivering to meet the needs of your learners. So I'll get this book replaced, and this will be the teaching in lifelong learning sector. That's a detailed book which I'll show you before the end of the session. Then we've also added other books which we do feel are directly related to the content of this particular unit. So for every unit, you'll have at least 2 or 3 ebooks which are definitely related to the content given in the indicative specs of the unit specification. And you would be, maybe skimming through some of these books specifically when you're doing your assignments. And the reason I say this is that Sometimes it's a case and parcel of, looking at some of these for purposes of gathering data. Some of these are magazines published by ETF, which is the Education and Training Foundation in the UK. And some of them tend to be, academic books, which are going to be traditional books recommended, and then articles and journals, which are basically going to give you summarized content and format of a particular topic related to learning outcome that you're studying. Now, sometimes these books, as you would see, take time to load because they are quite heavy in their, size, because these are electronic versions that we bought, and they should be fully visible and accessible to you for your own purposes of reading and learning. Now, you can download these books for your own reference so that you don't need to log into the system all the time if you feel that is the way you will work. But just under the Copyright Licensing Act, these books cannot be placed on any other forums or, used for commercial purposes of, let's say, sharing with others because of the Copyright Licensing Act.
Yeah, I understand.
Now, after the books, what you're going to see is we don't teach and deliver the unit in one go. So if you see this particular unit, the first one is broken down into 5 learning outcomes. So there is learning outcome 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So essentially, depending on the number of learning outcomes in your unit, you'll have those many presentations which are going to be focused on specifically one learning outcome. Now, our presentations are quite detailed. So this is the indicative content that we need to cover, which is given in the unit spec. Normally we start off with a bit of a video to build a context to what the learning outcome is talking about. We discuss key terminology and some theoretical aspects which are required for you to understand before we get into the assessment criteria which are given. So some part of the material that you're going to see is going to be slightly directive because it is going to go into each of the assessment criteria, unlike universities wherein they will just deliver a concept or give a lecture on the concept and then expect you to go about and, do the research and additional reading on your own to crystallize and obviously, then understand what is being talked about. But here in our case, what we're going to do is discuss each of them in detail. So it talks about first 1.1, what is lesson planning, aim of lesson planning. That's been discussed in detail. And then we go to the second assessment criteria, then third, so on and so forth. Towards the end, what we'll also do is give you some additional reading, which are going to be, useful sites from which you can actually read or get hold of 10-minute additional reading or 15-minute additional reading to get hold of a template of a lesson plan in this case, because the first unit focuses on lesson planning and the first learning outcome is about how to produce a lesson plan. So sometimes you would see on the plenary section, we would put some additional reading websites or important articles, which will then be downloaded and available to you under the learning outcome for you to be able to read. Now, sometimes it's difficult for us to cover everything in the presentation. So what we will do is make sure that you have enough material to be able to read that particular learning outcome. So in some cases, you will have articles which will come from journals. And in some cases, it'll be small extracts of summarized content, which will be useful to get a good summary of what is required in terms of understanding that particular learning outcome. Now, these are additional reading, which would normally be under a particular learning outcome that is required to be, studied, because we cannot just, obviously cut and paste everything straight away into, into every learning outcome, because it increases, the number of slides, which obviously is not beneficial. So the summarized content would be in the slides and followed by, the discussions that you would need to do or get into from a point of view of looking at understanding the concepts and theoretical frameworks. So in some cases, what we do is cover those theoretical frameworks before we go into any of the assessment criteria, because they will help build the knowledge which is required for that study of that particular learning outcome. So in learning outcome 2, for example, we need to look at various taxonomies of how the model and the teaching taxonomies have evolved over the years. So we've looked at 3 in particular. We'll cover them in a bit more detail, which is covered in the initial aspect of it: the Solo, the Flex, the Bloom's technology taxonomy, and the I think the third one was Alexander's and Crotzel's, Anderson's and Crotzel's taxonomy. So these are pretty much covered in the first aspect. And then we go into individual assessment criteria to address, so that you have enough knowledge and background in terms of what is being asked for in that learning outcome. And then you go into reading and understanding how they are put into practice from a point of view of the assessment criteria. And this layout will essentially follow through in all the units that you are going to essentially see in the in this particular unit. And the same format, the same type of structure will follow through in the second unit, the third, and the subsequent units. Is that okay? So this bit is about, generally the overview of systems and how you are going to go about accessing the teaching and learning material. Any questions on this?
No.
Okay. Now, second part that I would want to do primarily is to go through with you in terms of looking at, the course overview. So if I just briefly do a tick mark on this, and what we'll do is go into the course overview now and look at opening the first document that we have on the Moodle, which is the which is the course handbook.
Okay.
So if I take you back again, and here is where we are talking about the course handbook, which is given here. So when I look at opening the course handbook, this is the course handbook that we've downloaded from the OTHM website.
Okay.
And this particular course handbook, some part of it we have extracted already in terms of unit specifications and uploaded into individual units. But this is a very concise version of what you can get as a snapshot of what you're going to study in the qualification. So I would basically ask you to go through this particular handbook in a bit more detail, which will help you in familiarizing yourself with the awarding organization, which is OTHM, which will also help you, give you some background in terms of the related progression, which is given for this qualification, and then gives you a bit of a snapshot or summary of how and what is involved in reading and studying this particular qualification. So it's a fairly recent qualification which OTHM has introduced, and they've also introduced a number of other qualifications in other areas. So it was introduced in 2020. It's a one-year equivalent qualification. As you know, in UK, most qualifications are 1 year. So it's a level 6 diploma, which is like equivalent to a last year of your bachelor's or an undergraduate degree. There is no grading in this qualification. It's only pass and fail. Obviously, you will not fail because you get formative and summative feedback from us every time you submit an assignment, and it's working on the consultative basis to ensure that you are able to meet the criteria and obviously achieve every unit and achieve the overall qualification. Now, most of the qualification is written keeping in mind the DiTL's qualification that we have, which is introduced by the Learning Sector Skill Council. So as you would know that, the teaching qualifications were pretty much introduced way back in 2006 by City and Guild, and they were called Petals, Kettles, and DiTLs. They were over the years revised by Learning Sector Skill Councils. And obviously, after undergoing revision, I think in 2016, they were renamed as AET, CET, and DET. Award in Education and Training, Certificate in Education and Training, and Diploma in Education and Training. Now, that is considered maybe the highest qualification that you can do. And after that, normally, sometimes learners will also go in and do what is called PGC or postgraduate diploma or certificate in education. And you do a bit of specialization, whether you do it in a field like physics, chemistry, you choose your own subject. Now, OTHM has chosen to introduce this at level 6. So what they've done is, this part of it, the qualification is basically very closely mirroring what is called a certificate in education, because it teaches you the fundamentals of, understanding how to become a teacher or how to plan and organize your teaching sessions, essentially, when you are stepping into the teaching role. So there are basic units which have been introduced, things like lesson planning, reflective teaching, management of class dynamics. Now, the words, some of the naming of the units don't give away the content, but in the units itself, the content is quite detailed. But generally, it helps you understand that as a teacher, if I am teaching in primary or secondary schools, or if I'm going up to FE level, which is further education, what are the basic dynamics that you need to be aware of as a teacher and understand them, and be able not just understand them, but also be able to use them extensively well, is what will help you cover in this qualification. So things like when you're a part of a bigger team and you look at curriculum design, if you look at courses, introduction of new courses, designing of curriculum for those courses, looking at how education can be delivered. So you look at your role and look at the role of other colleagues which are teaching and delivering other subjects, as a result of which the learner or the student is able to achieve a qualification or achieve a year. So that would be something that you would look at. And then one of the things which has become quite important in the last few years, especially because of COVID, is the use of technology in education. And the use of technology in education, like we are using today, Zoom. A lot of people are now taking courses more ever than before in terms of doing it through distance learning, because it is possible for us to learn and, obviously gain new skills by using and integrating technology, which we do see now being done in schools, colleges, universities all over the world. So things like laptops, setting up of lessons, practice exercises, portals which schools have set up, to be able to provide revision activities to students children at home, is all being done with the use of technology. So technology has become a very integral part of teaching. And that is what is covered in one of the units, because now teaching is no longer done on the blackboard or the whiteboard. Usage of things like interactive boards and laptops and tablets and other equipments using integrated smart boards allows the teaching to be immersive. That means the learners, students can pretty much interact with everything. And because of the availability of internet and resources available through the internet, it makes learning fun and easier, both from a point of view of delivery from a teacher's perspective, but also from a point of view of receiving that delivery from a student's or a children's perspective. So there are bits that you will study in these 6 units, which are going to be very, very up to date, because as you know, and I mentioned earlier, that this is a very new qualification. So it has undergone, and they picked up some part of the qualification in 2020 and created it, which means it is the most up to date and latest qualification in the market. Now, there is no way that you can look at completing a 1-year qualification in less than 4 months, because that is the minimum time period which has been put in by Ofqual. Even though you're exceptionally brilliant, you might be an Einstein in your own field, no problem with that. But there's a certain amount of restriction in terms of the completion of the qualification, which Ofqual puts and the awarding body puts. So the earliest that you can complete, assuming if you are looking at fast tracking, would be at least 4 months period, because what most qualifications have moved on to in the UK now, there was something called guided learning hours, GLH. That changed to total qualification time under the RQF framework. So most qualifications had QCF or curriculum framework regulated and changed, because in England, obviously, in Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland, there are 4 different frameworks. So what the government did was did away with the NVQ, then introduced QCF, and then finally in 2016-17 introduced RQF, which is a regulated framework. And because now reading, learning, studying can happen through various modes. You can do it in class, you can do it online, you can do a bit of this through training within the office or your workplace. It could be done through discussions, social media, technology in general, through the internet, reading a book. And there are loads of activities through which you can actually learn. So what the Ofqual did was, when it changed the framework, it changed the concept of guided learning hours. That means you need to study minimum of this many hours unit to be able to achieve and successfully, confidently achieve the content, has now been replaced with what is called total qualification time. That means any activities that you do towards the learning of your course, the activities that you undertake, whether it's reading a book, discussing with a colleague, or having a brainstorming session, group discussion, watching a video on social media or YouTube, or doing a classroom-based study, self-study in terms of reading a book, article, journal, even with your own area of work when you work within the organization, all these would be considered as activities which are helping you move towards successfully completing your qualification. And any such time that you have spent within them would be considered towards time that you're sending in reading this qualification. And that is why this concept has changed from guided learning hours, which is only classroom based, to a number of different types of activities and to total qualification time being spent. And that is the major shift which has happened in how qualifications now can be read, can be studied, and can be completed by learners, because sometimes mature learners, like yourself, would want to go through. You are in the field of teaching yourself, and that would mean that you have requisite knowledge and experience to be able to complete this qualification earlier. So some restrictions have gone away, but a minimum restriction or a time period applies as far as the completion is concerned, so that you are able to thoroughly attain a particular qualification and convincingly say that, yes, I've done this and I'm fully aware of what the contents of the qualification are. Is that okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Now, generally speaking, when I asked you to share your CV and obviously, a proof of ID, because we need to obviously do registration with OTHM, and that is something that we will do, and we required those minimum documents. But one of the key things that you would see in this qualification is that the qualification requires a minimum level of level 5 qualification to be able to get to level 6.
Yeah.
So what is your previous qualification as far as the course is concerned?
Okay, I'm currently doing my final assignment on level 5.
Okay.
Diploma in education and training, and I wanted to enroll on this course because my tutor usually takes around 3 to 4 weeks for the feedback.
Right.
So I know this course, when I enroll, it takes time. So by the time I complete that course, I'm ready to start this course. So I'm working on my final assignment, and I have passed all the other assignments. And I will very soon get my level 5 certificate. And any other thing you want to know?
No, that's fine. And what is the qualification? So are you doing a DET or are you doing that with OTHM?
Level 5 diploma in education and training from Future Step Education.
All right. Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
So basically they will issue a DET certificate to you, and that would be good enough for you to qualify and obviously do the level 6 qualification, which is great.
Yeah.
So once you get a copy of your diploma from them, do forward it on to us, so that from a point of view of academic and admissions requirement, if OTHM does ask us how have you assessed the eligibility of the candidate, we know that this is something which you have completed, and they would be satisfied that, okay, we have done due checks to be able to get you onto level 6. So that bit is clearly taken care of. Now, there are no exams in this qualification. Most of it is primarily through assessment, which is assignments. Some part of the assignments are going to be, asking you to produce practical evidence, and they could be templates that we will provide, which will help you. And if you've done level 5, that is great, because level 5 qualification, which a lot of learners do with us, also DET, we offer it through NCFE. That is a very, very extensive qualification. It has 9 units, and I'm presuming you have also completed 8 or 9 units.
Yes,
and
I have.
The 4 mandatory units, each of them have 8, 8, 9, 9 learning outcomes, apart from the wider professional development unit, which is unit 4. So they should have given you extensive knowledge into this particular area of teaching and learning. And that is going to be very helpful for you going forward when you do this part of qualification. I think some part of it might feel repetitive because OTHM's units, are, if I compare it with DET, it's little scant, but because it's a level 6, it shows progression, and the inclusion of 2 units that they've done predominantly, which is inclusion of technology in education and integrated education, are the management side of units, which you do not have essentially in, DET. DET has a lot of optional units. Sometimes people do choose the technology unit as well, but sometimes they choose the specialist unit, teaching in a specialist area, which is unit 21. And then you do units which are 6 credits in order to minimize the number of assignments and the overall study that you have to do sometimes. So that is where I think this will be slightly different when you study level 6 with us. Now, I think there will be a lot of mapping of maybe a lot of mapping of recognition of prior learning, which could be done in some cases. So feel free to bring your work in from level 5. I'm pretty sure in the units 1, 2, 3, you would have created things like assessment plans. You would have had learners work, minimum 2 learners work. So those are bits that you can bring in into this particular unit, and in some of the units within this qualification, which will obviously help you reduce the amount of work that you need to do in terms of written evidence. And they would be, I would say, you can bring them on, and we'll be looking at the process of recognition of prior learning on that.
Okay.
And then apart from that, I think, as I mentioned to you, unit specifications we've extracted for individual units from here. So maybe just the 2-3 pages that you need to read from pages 3 to 6 would be giving you a bit of knowledge into and background into OTHM, the qualification, the progression, and finally, it might be a good bedside reading for you to just go through the unit content and familiarize yourself with, what is required and what do you expect to study in some of the units at level 6.
Okay.
Is that okay? Now, most of the work within, the units are going to be referenced to Harvard referencing as a presentation. So that's the other bit that we've included, although you would be familiar with it now because you've done your level or completing your level 5. But we put together a short presentation on referencing, which will allow you to understand what is Harvard referencing. This is something that I would expect you to go through. There is a small user guide on Moodle, should you wish to go through. This is an additional 2-3 page document just to show you how the arrangement of the learning material is done, what kind of documents and formats you see, and what is available predominantly on Moodle, which is something as a ready reckoner that you would maybe want. At some stage, you would want to look at when you start submitting evidence, maybe go through this bit, which will give you a bit of guidance in terms of how to submit assignments. I know sometimes in the teaching qualification, some centers would essentially run this as task-based course, wherein they give you a lot of templates to fill in for task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, things like that. What we are going to focus on is take the holistic approach rather than the task-wise approach, because that was more of an NVQ thing. But in the regulated framework approach, it is more of a holistic approach for assessments. So the idea would be to look at following this approach wherein you are going to do assignments at the end of it, but these assignments are task-based, and obviously they would be requiring you to produce theoretical as well as practical evidence because of the teaching qualification side of things involved. Some part of this would involve evidence that you submit as annexures, and these annexures would be, adding, like, it's the meat on the bones that you are going to add primarily to complete and evidence a particular task. So if it gives you, say, in one of the units, lesson planning, first, I think learning or second learning outcome says produce a lesson plan. Now we put a lesson plan in. There are loads of templates of lesson planning. If you've got something of your own and you used it in level 5, use that template. That would mean that you can reuse some of the work, but also helps you understand that, this is not going to be attempted theoretically. You have to actually produce a lesson planning template. And that would say, if I choose a unit like, say, just as an example, I put something in, which is if I'm teaching nursing and I have aspects of human physiology, that unit has 4 learning outcomes. I'm going to deliver this unit in 10 weeks, activities, planning of the unit, showing a video, giving out some activities to students, and that would be included in the lesson plan. Each lesson plan, 45 minutes, delivered through a lecture, some activity, group discussion, and then feedback. So that would be the bits that you would need to look at as far as that is concerned. And that part is covered in the, the bits on what you would need to look at formatting when you submit your assignment. This bit would cover just the first part. And that would essentially help us cover, so it's 120 credit qualification, minimum time frame, I would say 4 months, maximum, I would say 1 year. All your registration, everything is valid for a period of 2 years. What you're paid, you don't need to pay any single penny extra apart from this. And the only other thing which you're based in the UK, so I know that Saudi Arabia, when we dispatch, we normally use DHL. So what we are going to do is send you an electronic version of your certificate, because OTHM does not send any or print any more certificates. If you need them, you would need to order it from OTHM directly, but they will issue you a portal login, which will be a login with you for life. And that would allow you to, study any other qualification or get, verification done, because they've included a verification system in their qualifications now, which is now mandated by, the OFS, Office of Students in the UK, and they formed a body called Higher Education Digital Database. And this was started off as an initiative, I think, in 2018. And all universities and awarding bodies are signed onto it. And this is to ensure that digitally employers are able to verify your qualification. You are able to keep a tab on where your qualification is circulated, who it's provided to. And then if you need to order a print, then you can do it from their portal. Sometimes learners use it for immigration and other purposes as well. So lots of different things can be done through electronic verification of this qualification, and for which, you would normally get, if I show you a portal that we have, and you would, when you are ready for, certification, what will happen is OTHM will also send you, an email, and this would give you a username and password to be able to access your certification side of things from the portal. And generally, if you need to order a print or send a verification across to an employer, all these would be possible from, the portal itself. So in our case, generally as a center, we have this portal, and this allows us to essentially see certification of learners, for the centers that we have, and we can provide electronic versions to the learners so that it minimizes any sort of fraud or, digital piracy, which is currently happening in terms of certificates, primarily for learners. So you would get a login like this. And obviously, when you click on your record, just to give you an example, it will show you an electronic version of the certificate that you can download. It is available as a diploma. And then the diploma also has a transcript, which will show the units that you've achieved. And obviously, it's not graded at this stage, but it'll show pass. And it is, if you scan this barcode, it'll straight away take you back to the OTHM website, and it'll say that the certificate is genuine, issued on so and so date. And that allows electronic verification to happen and also keep the certification secure. Now, what I would do is the third part that I want to get to very quickly is basically show you how the assessment and feedback process typically happens. Now, the reason I say this is because when you submit the assignments, you're going to submit the assignments to us at this particular email address, which is learnerwork@ukversity.co.uk. This mailbox is monitored. You get an acknowledgement receipt. We have a 3 to 5 day turnaround time on any assignment which is submitted. And in some cases, it can be maximum up to 2 weeks, because there are certain times of the year when, we have certifications happening and there is academic, closures and UCAS and things like that. But generally, our turnaround time on when you submit a assignment to us is maximum 3 to 5 working days. So you should be able to get feedback from us within that particular time frame. And this feedback normally is annotated on the Word document. And towards the end of it, when you have completed the unit and we feel that everything has been marked satisfactorily or achieved satisfactorily, what you will generally have is a summative cover sheet, which primarily would confirm, the achievement of that unit with some grades, with some remarks from the lecturer, but also at the same point in time, giving you the, let's say, the document and the document with the summative feedback summary back for your own records and record keeping as well, to say that, okay, this is the unit that you have passed, and now you can move on to the next unit. And this is what we also then showcase to, the external examiner when they come in, primarily for the purposes of, sampling and obviously allowing certification. So let me share my full screen now. And what I want to do is, on my screen, you're going to see 2 documents in particular. And what I've just done is generally opened up 2 documents just to give you an idea. So this is a part of an assignment which the learner has submitted to us. This assignment is, say, for example, a particular unit. And what we do is when we get the assignment, we'll do some marking on the assignment to see if you're meeting all the assessment criteria, and the evidence provided is helping you accomplish and convincingly meet the task which has been set. And what you will generally see on the right-hand side would be, commenting or commentary given by the lecturer who's essentially assessed your assignment, whether you've met, whether you've not met, and in some cases, it will give you detailed commenting to say what needs to be added, what needs to be changed or amended in order to achieve that particular task.
Right.
Now, if we feel that, a particular task, because the command verb is giving analyze or evaluate or critically evaluate, and is your evidence that you produced is slightly scant or less, then in those cases, what we're going to do is ask you to elaborate on that particular content. Now, when we ask you to elaborate on that content, what we normally would then do is this particular document that you submit will go back and forth between you and the tutor who's teaching that unit. And what we expect is that if you add anything, say, for example, if this was a comment which was saying that you mentioned global talent management and how it has an impact on performance, but you haven't taken an example of an organization. So what would happen at that stage here would be that all I would do is basically put in a comment, and that comment here that I put essentially would say to a certain extent, could you include an example of an organization like, just say, Microsoft, and explain how they manage global, or how they manage talent globally within the organization. Now, this is the reason I put this is because I think the task has been done descriptively, and it does not have an example organization to say, although you put the table here which says that how does it impact and why is it important for the organization to manage its talent globally. So here what I would do is, when I say you need to add an example, and assuming you go in and you at some stage say example of, I'm just going to take an example from the internet, example of Microsoft global talent management. Just taking some relevant text as of now. So if I look at talent management systems here and maybe take some text from it, and then what I want to do at some stage would be, when I look at taking, say, for example, an example of a text here that, global talent management is done using number one, software. So forget that. So say job rotation. So job rotation would mean that internally, when jobs are available, Microsoft would basically, transfer employees to different geographies or give them the opportunity essentially to look at switching to that particular role. And that would be an example of how they would manage, say, for example, global, talent, globally managing and retaining the talent within their organization. Now, I'm just looking at if I had to take out some content from somewhere, not that website. So here, if I to say, for example, if I added a couple of, paragraphs of example, just in my own words, what I would expect you to do in this case would be, you highlight this to us as yellow, that this is the addition that you have done as far as the text is concerned, for the comment which was made by adding an example through job rotation, just as an example showing you. Now, this makes it easier for us to identify it and, quickly turn the assignment around, because I know that the commenting that was done primarily was done to say that although the text that you've given is fine, but maybe the example would help us, justify the command verb. And this text that you've added, what you've done is you've highlighted that in yellow, which shows me that you've added this bit of the text after the feedback, and that relates to helping you achieve this particular task now. Okay. Now, This document, when it comes back to us, and now assuming I see that the whole assignment is now fully complete and it is fully meeting the criteria, there is no issue or no problem with the assignment, and you have done everything has been achieved. At some stage, what I'm going to then do is send you a summative feedback sheet, which is going to be like this, which will clearly say your name, your registration number, you passed the unit, some comments which are say why you passed, and summative feedback comment towards the end, signed off by the lecturer, which would tell you that this unit is now complete, signed off by the IQA, signed off by the assessor, and this will be put forward for certification, and you move on to the next unit. Okay. This process would normally be 2 times maximum. The reason I say this is because if I send you some feedback, or if one of the lecturers send you a feedback on this and you submit something back and still you're not able to achieve, we'll basically, ask you to do a tutorial with us through Zoom for 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 minutes, whatever the time. But we'll ask you to do the tutorial so that we are able to clarify what exactly is to be done. We are not interested in the university style system to say, okay, no, this is not meeting the criteria, fail, you resubmit, then you fail, then you resubmit. No, what we are going to do is either we are not being able to explain you correctly, or you're maybe missing the point. So there is a better way of resolving this quickly and promptly would be to fix a tutorial, speak to you on the phone, or send you an email with details to say this is how it needs to be done. And I'll give you a simple example. I had one of the learners, who has essentially, say for example, asked for some feedback. And just to show you this particular email, I don't know what is the screen that you're using on your side. Are you on a laptop or a phone?
I'm on a phone.
All right. Okay. So I'll minimize this to one window. Now, this is a particular assignment, corporate reporting, which the learner has submitted. But what he did was, along with that, he was quite clear that I want to know about some of the information. Like what the person said was, do I need to include more examples? Task 2, he had specific questions. Task 3, and then in conclusion, he wanted to look at what are the basic areas that I need to get into to be able to, make sure that I'm able to achieve, say, a distinction grade in my assignment. And because it's back to school for him after a couple of years, so, these questions were asked. And what we have done is we've provided detailed answers in terms of how you would go about addressing distinction and how you would go about achieving this particular unit and the grade that you're asking to. So our feedback to you is going to be quite detailed. And if I look at this is the email, and the idea is to try and give him feedback on the document and also give him feedback separately, which will allow him to achieve the unit in an instant wherein he doesn't need to do too many resubmissions. Is that okay? So sometimes our feedback to you is going to be as detailed as possible. It's going to be maybe quite critical to a certain extent, because what we want to do is get the point across to you, which will allow you to understand what is required to be done so that you are able to, kind of convincingly and confidently submit in order to meet the requirements of that unit. We don't want to be spending too much time on back and forth and, say, oh, no, this is not correct, that is not correct. No, I think what we want to do is get straight to the point and give you a very clear idea in terms of what is required to be done and how it is to be done so that you're able to accomplish it in the first instance rather than back and forth. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Good stuff. So that helps us cover, the assessment and feedback side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's look at in terms of, who are going to be tutors on this course. So we've got 3 tutors in particular that you're going to be looking at, sometimes tutorials or delivery. I've got one of my colleagues, Phil Hodgkinson. He's got 40 years of experience in total, and obviously our last 20 years has been in teaching and assessing qualifications. I've got one of my colleagues called Anjum Sattar. He is a PGC and also he does teaching on the teaching program. And apart from that, it is going to be myself. And we do teach the DET qualification and the various variants of it, AET, CET, and DET. And we are going to be looking at, the delivery and teaching and learning of your qualification at level 6. Now, apart from this, there is going to be one of my colleagues called Jill. She basically is the course coordinator. So you'd probably be getting emails from her quite often. And that would be either Zoom invites, sessions, keeping a tab on your progress in terms of how you're progressing with regards to the course and the course material. And she would be sending emails to you. Now, if you ever need to write to UK Versity, anybody in UK Versity is always the first name followed by ukversity.co.uk.
Okay.
So it is that simple. So if we need to write to Anjum at UK Versity. If we need to write to Phil, it'll be Phil, not Philip, but Phil at UK Versity. And if you need to write to me, it'll be Raman at UK Versity. If you need to write to Jill, it'll be Jill at ukversity.co.uk. Now, apart from this, there are 2-3 other colleagues that you could be in touch with, obviously from a point of view of studying, teaching and learning when you are doing the qualification with us. One of my colleagues is Victor, and he's the IT manager. So if you need to reach Victor, you can reach him on Victor at UK Versity. He normally would be, putting up the resources on Moodle, making sure that you have everything accessible. And if there are any issues or any problems related to accessing any resources on that side, he's the one who's going to be looking at, ensuring that everything is working and everything is available to you as and when you require. I have one of my colleagues who's the administrator. He, at some stage, would be looking at dispatching and, sending you a copy of your diploma and other bits or anything which is required. And because in administration, we have a couple of people, so we use a generic email that we have, we have a couple of people in admin, but they will address if you send something over for the purposes at a later stage when it is required for you, like an academic reference, or you need a completion letter, or you need a copy of your diploma, or you haven't received your assignment feedback. Those are the bits that you would probably reach them, and they would be, reachable through this particular email. I've got one of my colleagues, Amrita. She basically is the registrar or, the examinations officer. She would be the one who would be basically looking after. She does your registration. She looks after your assessments and coordination with various lecturers. And she would also be responsible for your certification. So when she starts the process of your certification, when you're 80% complete on the course, that means you've done 5 out of 6 units, the process would start at our end. She would inform you on the email and obviously keep you abreast and updated on how the certification is happening. Generally, when you complete your course, for example, you started whenever you had, and you have completed and submitted your last assignment to us, say on 20th of June, you should have your certification within 10 working days. By 30th June, you should have your certification with you. So she's the one who basically does this bit of coordination on our end, and she is responsible. So you might occasionally hear from her, or, she might occasionally write to you, but it is normally during the later end of the course when you are more or less completing or you are towards completion.
Okay.
Now, if you ever want to see, anybody, and obviously I think pretty much because I'm doing the session from home today, I would have switched on my video, but maybe during one of the sessions that we normally do, you'd be able to see us, meet us, and obviously, get to know us because we normally sometimes also switch on and, keep the video on. But yes, if you want to, meet some of the staff and obviously just to get to see, faces, sometimes it's good to have. That's me there. She's Amrita. One of the lead assessors sometimes who's going to be assessing your work is going to be Reena. Jill, that is Jill here. That is Harjinder. And then these are people pretty much in the operations team, which are pretty much in the college every day. And then on the homepage, you are able to see some of the lecture profiles, their backgrounds, and you'll be able to see this is Phil. And you'll be able to see most of us, and when you click on any of the, for example, any of the profiles, you should be able to go in and see the details of the person in terms of what their experience qualification is and stuff like that. So you are visually able to see us, speak to us, and obviously, get in touch with us as and when required. And that would be through the website. And that is why I mentioned, website probably is one of the clear bits of important things available with us that you would need to bookmark and have at any given point in time. Now, we're also going to add you to a WhatsApp group. That WhatsApp group will essentially ensure that if you need to do any urgent, reaching out to us apart from the phone, where sometimes phone is not always the, convenient medium, but sometimes it's the emails and the phones. But if you need to look at, obviously reaching out to us, that will be possible through the WhatsApp as well. And that is where we will ensure that you have access to us through email, through phone, and through the WhatsApp, so that at any given point in time, if you feel that you need something in terms of any help, then you are able to get in touch, and we are able to respond more or less instantly to you. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Good stuff. Any questions at your end?
No, not really. Do you have any live webinars, or is it all presentations and documents?
Right. Okay. So there are two bits that it's a very good question that you asked, and the reason I will address it, I'll address it in two ways. Now, you know that you bought this course on Read courses, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
That is where we advertise the cheaper version of our courses, and there's a difference in terms of the fee structure.
Okay.
So when we don't do any differentiation, to be honest, and ideally, once we had some feedback, we would have given you the logins and you would have been on your own to do the course. But I think we get inquiries from there. It's a place for us to generate inquiries. And sometimes I know money obviously plays an important part, but that is the essential difference when you buy course from Read courses and when you buy or, essentially enroll with us and pay and buy the course from us or study the course from us directly as UK Versity. That is where the difference is going to be. So there is a slight bit of difference in terms of price. So when we look at UK Versity, we are doing blended learning. So you'll get live lectures and, you'll have tutorials, weekly sections and everything which is going to be available. And that will allow you to study the course with us over a period of 26 weeks, this particular qualification. And that is where, the fee structure of the course is slightly different. So we would advertise and, charge probably £1,500, as against what you paid for on Read courses. To be honest, I don't even know what you paid on Read courses.
So, I mean, the reason I chose this course was in the Read courses, like it mentioned, you have live webinars, and I did pay £1,500 because there were similar courses which was around, I think, £1,300 and £1,100.
Sure.
And I did pay 1,500, and one of the main reasons was like for live webinars. And
so in our case, we are not going to make any difference on that side. And that is the reason I've organized this session with you and the conversation with you is because we are interested in gaining learners. We are not interested in money comes and goes. So fees is not the important criteria for us. The important criteria for us is the course itself and how the learner is actually studying the course with us. So you are not going to find any difference with us. I don't know in terms of what you paid, but if you paid $1,500, that's fine. But what we will do is we will now share a schedule with you, which will be a live schedule, which will primarily have lectures like I'm doing with you today. And that would basically be teaching and delivering the course to you.
Okay.
The reason I said initially that there are two ways that I can answer this question for you is because sometimes I have learners from overseas who are fast tracking and they want to study everything on their own. They just want to concentrate on assignments. So this session helps me understand how you want to go about it. So one option is you do self-study and then you request tutorials with us, which could be 1 hour, 2 hour, 5 hour long, does not matter. We don't place any specific, significance on the length of the tutorial. So what we will do is discuss something out with you, discuss the unit, your doubts, your queries, and take you through it and complete and help you move ahead. That would be the self-study route, but that will also involve Zoom tutorials like this. But they might be tutorials which are done at a time you want, at a day you want, and for a unit or a content that you want. And they'll be related to your course. And the other way that we do is we basically teach and deliver this live, wherein there is no differentiation in terms of the price that you are paying. But what we are going to do is you're going to get a systematic schedule from us for every 6 weeks. We'll cover one unit in about 5 to 6 weeks. So depending on the learning outcomes, so if you look at unit 1 lesson planning, it has 5 learning outcomes. We are going to cover that unit in 6 weeks. So we are going to do 6 sessions. the sixth session or the last session is always the assignment discussion session. So what we want to do is discuss the assignment, how it is to be done. We'll show you a sampler, how it is to be done, so that you are able to produce the evidence and the output the right way the first time rather than any iteration. And then we start the second unit, then we go on to the third, and so on and so forth. So what I would want to understand from you is what would be the ideal days and times for you to do sessions with us?
Okay, can I WhatsApp you or email you the days?
Yes.
Because I'm going on holiday as well
Sure.
in a week or so. So I will fix it the day. And like, did you say like how many days you need? Like how many, like in a
Yeah,
week, how many days?
ideally, I would say if you can do 2 sessions with us in a week, that allows you to complete a unit in about 3 to 4 weeks. And we have 6 units to do. So assuming on an average, if we look at 4 weeks a unit, you're looking at about, 24 weeks. That means 6 months. If you want to do it slightly earlier or later, then we can adjust the way we do the lessons so that you are not stressed because you're working full time, you have kids, family, and that is where some learners, what they would do is they will say, okay, I'll do 1 session. And we normally do 1 session a week, which is covering 1 learning outcome. They have enough time to self-study, read the articles, journals, and then next week, another session. So total flexibility on that side. And we would want, the reason you are studying this course with us through online route is to get that flexibility. So we will adapt and ensure that you are able to get that support from us and then study it at your pace and the way you want to study. So we'll support you all the way. That is not an issue at all.
Yeah, I mean, we are approaching summer vacation, so, I will have more time, and I do want to finish this course as soon as I can. And I have read extensively for my level 5. And I have done a lot of research before I enrolled to this course. And so, I mean, I really want to do my master's after this course. So I need to finish this course as fast as I can. And I mean, I have gone through the work, the assignments, and they're not that great difference from the level 5. I mean, slightly.
I totally agree. It's not, you'll probably find this bit of the course at level 6 with OTHM slightly, I would say not, I can't quantify, but you'll find it easier. I'll put it this way, because a lot of content that you are looking at covering in this course, you would have gone through in some context or the other form in level 5.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I know there are a few mandatory bits, but in total, I had to do 12 assignments, which I have completed 11, and I'm on the 12th one and just, going through the last bits. So, yeah. Apart from that, everything sounds good. I will email you the days I'm available.
Sure. But tentatively, are you working full time?
No, part-time.
Part-time, okay. And what would be the ideal days if I have to just take down some ideal days?
Ideal days would be Mondays and Wednesdays.
Mondays and Wednesdays. And you're based in where in Saudi Arabia?
I'm Jeddah. I am in and out of the UK. I'm a British national. My husband works here. So I'm like usually every 3 to 4 months, I'm in the UK. At the moment, I'm in Jeddah.
That's fine. And in terms of what would be the ideal times, I know we are about 2 to 3 hours ahead of you now because of the time difference.
No, we are 2 hours ahead of the UK.
Okay. Almost saving time. Okay. So in terms, what times are normally ideal?
I'm quite flexible. UK timing 9-10 is fine with me.
Is the AM you're talking 9 and 10 AM?
Yes. Yeah. 9 and 10 AM.
All right. Okay, that's fine. So I'll keep this in mind. And what we'll do is we'll start to put some planning in place so that when you come back to me with an email, then we can, immediately send you a schedule to start the first unit. Okay. And that would help us essentially, get you started without any delay or any lag on the course itself.
Okay.
Is that okay?
I mean, to start with, like for the first unit, I mean, as I told you, I enrolled for this course because of the live classes, the live webinars. In the READ courses, it mentions as live webinars. And for the first unit, I can have a go, like how the live webinars are and whether I'm okay to continue without them. I will have a go. Maybe I might not need the live webinars. I will see how things go with the first assignment, and then I'll take it up from there.
That's absolutely fine. No worries. I think we can have both of the approaches that you want to apply. That is absolutely flexible. And if you feel one works best or works better for you or the other, we are going to be absolutely fine. And the main contact that I would do is I have your WhatsApp in any case. And apart from that, what I will do is at some stage also, add you to a WhatsApp group, which do you want us to add the UK number to the WhatsApp group?
Yes, please. Yeah, my WhatsApp is registered with my UK number.
That's fine. Okay. So WhatsApp will be the UK number, and I will add that so that we are able to touch base more frequently with regards to the course and the course bits. And I will ensure that, you get a copy of this recording just after our session, so that if you need to look at anything or revisit on anything, that should be available to you instantly.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
No worries, Fatima. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.